Story 1. I just confessed to my best friend's wife that I have feelings for her. Did I do the right thing? I never thought I would be the person to do something like this. The moment the words left my mouth, I felt a mix of relief and dread. Now, I'm left to deal with the consequences. Let me explain how it all happened. It started a few months ago. My best friend, Jake, and I have known each other since college. We've been through everything together. Breakups, career changes, you name it. About 5 years ago, Jake married Emily. She's smart, funny, and kind, and I've always liked her. But recently, those feelings have become something more, something I didn't expect and certainly didn't want. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just a phase. I dated other people, threw myself into my work, and even considered moving to a different city to get some distance. But nothing worked. Every time we all hung out, I found myself looking at Emily more and more, feeling a pang of jealousy whenever I saw her and Jake together. Last weekend, things came to a head. Jake and I had planned a weekend trip to our favorite hiking spot, but he had to cancel at the last minute because of a work emergency. Emily decided to come with me instead since she also needed a break. It was supposed to be a fun, platonic trip, but the more time we spent together, the harder it became to hide my feelings. We were sitting by the campfire on the second night, talking about life and sharing stories. Emily mentioned how she sometimes felt disconnected from Jake because of his demanding job. She looked sad, and I felt an overwhelming urge to comfort her. Before I knew it, I blurted out, "Emily, I have feelings for you." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. I immediately regretted my words, but there was no taking them back. She finally spoke, saying she needed some time to think and walked away. The rest of the trip was awkward, to say the least. We drove back in near silence, and since then, I haven't heard from her. I don't know if she's told Jake or if she's still processing what I said. All I know is that I've potentially ruined the best friendship I've ever had and possibly caused a rift in their marriage. Story 2. I just confessed to my boss that I accidentally deleted a critical project file. Did I do the right thing? It was the most stressful moment of my career. I had to walk into my boss's office and admit that I had made a mistake that could cost the company thousands of dollars and weeks of work. Let me explain how it all happened. I work as a project manager at a tech company. Last month, we landed a huge client, a potential game changer for our business. The project was high stakes, with a tight deadline and a lot riding on its success. I was responsible for managing the team and ensuring everything ran smoothly. Late one night, after hours of working on a critical part of the project, I was exhausted but determined to finish up some last-minute details. My eyes were burning from staring at the screen, and my mind was foggy from lack of sleep. I decided to clean up some files to make things more organized. In my tired state, I accidentally selected the wrong folder and hit delete. Panic set in immediately. I checked the trash bin, hoping I could quickly restore the files, but they were gone. I had inadvertently set up an automatic purge to free up space. I tried every recovery method I could think of, but nothing worked. The file was gone for good. The next morning, I barely slept, dreading the moment I would have to tell my boss. As I walked into the office, my heart was pounding. I rehearsed what I would say, but nothing seemed adequate. Finally, I gathered my courage and knocked on his door. "Come in," he said, looking up from his desk. I took a deep breath and walked in, closing the door behind me. "Mike, I need to talk to you about something important," I started. He raised an eyebrow, sensing the gravity in my tone. "Last night, I accidentally deleted a critical project file. I've tried every recovery option, but it's gone. I'm really sorry." There was a long pause as he processed what I had just said. I could see the disappointment and frustration in his eyes. He leaned back in his chair and sighed deeply. "Why didn't you have a backup?" he asked, his voice controlled but clearly angry. "I thought we had an automatic backup system in place, but it seems like there was an issue with it," I explained, feeling my stomach drop. Mike rubbed his temples, clearly stressed. "This is a major setback. We might miss the deadline because of this." "I understand, and I take full responsibility," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll work around the clock to recreate the file and ensure we stay on track. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." Mike stared at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, let's focus on finding a solution. We'll have to inform the client about the delay, but let's see what we can salvage first. Start working on it immediately." I left his office feeling a mixture of relief and dread. I had owned up to my mistake, but the hard work was just beginning. I spent the next few days working tirelessly, coordinating with the team to recreate the lost file. It was tough, but we managed to get back on track, and the client was surprisingly understanding when we explained the situation. Now, I'm left wondering if I did the right thing. Should I have kept quiet and tried to fix it on my own, potentially risking even more damage? Or was coming clean the best choice, even if it meant facing my boss's disappointment and anger? Story 3. I just confessed to my wife that I lied about our finances for the past year. Did I do the right thing? I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation, but here I am. The words were out before I could stop them, and now I'm grappling with the aftermath. Let me explain how I got here. My wife, Sarah, and I have been married for 10 years. We've always prided ourselves on our open and honest relationship, especially when it comes to finances. We share everything, or at least we did. About a year ago, I made a series of bad investments that didn't pay off. I was embarrassed and scared to tell her, so I didn't. Instead, I tried to fix things on my own. I started dipping into our savings to cover the losses, telling myself it was temporary and I'd pay it back once my next investment worked out. But one bad decision led to another, and soon I found myself in deeper than I could handle. Our emergency fund dwindled, and I started using our joint credit cards to pay bills. The debt kept piling up, and I felt trapped in a web of my own making. Every day, I woke up with a knot in my stomach, dreading the moment Sarah would discover the truth. She'd occasionally ask how we were doing financially, and I'd put on a confident face, assuring her everything was fine. But the guilt was eating me alive. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever, and it was only a matter of time before she found out. Last weekend, we were sitting at the kitchen table, going over some paperwork. Sarah was talking about plans for a vacation we'd been dreaming of for years. I felt a wave of nausea, knowing we couldn't afford it. The pressure finally got to me, and I blurted out, "Sarah, I need to tell you something about our finances." She looked at me, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "I've been lying to you," I confessed. "About a year ago, I made some bad investments. I thought I could fix it, but it only got worse. I've used up our savings and racked up a lot of debt on our credit cards. I'm so sorry." The look on her face was heartbreaking. First came the shock, then the hurt, and finally the anger. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, tears welling up in her eyes. "We could have dealt with this together." I had no good answer. I was ashamed and didn't want to worry you. I thought I could fix it on my own. Sarah stood up, her hands shaking. "I trusted you. How could you keep this from me?" The rest of the evening was a blur of emotions. We argued, cried, and tried to make sense of the situation. She felt betrayed, and I couldn't blame her. We decided to take a few days to process everything before figuring out our next steps. Now, I'm sitting here, reflecting on what I've done. Coming clean was the hardest thing I've ever done, but the weight of the secret was unbearable. I know I've damaged her trust and put our financial future at risk. Part of me wonders if I should have kept trying to fix it on my own, but another part knows that lying was tearing us apart from the inside.